for joining me again or joining us again. Please read beyond the caption of the broadcast. Read the description as well. Like it. Yeah, this broadcast. Share it. Before you settle down, do all of this. Invite your friends. Invite your not so friendly friends. All you have to tell them is that Mayegun today, Mayegun is here. And thank you very much if you have done that already. The image on your screen is that of Tinubu, as well as his wife, Remi Ahmed. Tinubu, Rat, the wife of Bola Ahmed. Tinubu, Bat. So, which is where we got the rider from. The husband is Bat. The wife is Rat. The two of them are currently on 3-day working visits. According to his social media handlers, Bat and Rat were invited by Macron and Brigitte, Emmanuel and Brigitte Macron, to France to discuss, according to Onofunuga, Tinubu's 70-year-old social media advisor. They said that Tinubu will be discussing. Okay, let me read the statements, okay, so that we can possibly pick on that. They said that Tinubu will have an official engagement which will begin tomorrow at the historic Les Invalides. I realize that one like a Les Invalid. Invalid, they're like the cripples. Oh. Well, that's what it is called. Les Invalid. That's funny. Where the French president, Emmanuel Macron, and his wife, Brigitte Macron, will warmly receive President Tinubu. So they said the visit will continue with a distinguished reception at Palace de l'Élysée. Élysée Palace in English. Honoring the Nigeria illegitimate president. He said the visit aims to enhance bilateral ties, focusing on key areas such as agriculture, security, education, health, youth engagement, innovation, and energy transition. I believe this is just Onofunuga, right? Doing some mental gymnastics. But anyway, they said this is what Tinubu will be doing. In collaboration with Macron, Tinubu will address initiatives to boost youth exchange programs and enhance skill automation, entrepreneurship, and leadership. While additionally, both dealers will attend a session hosted by France-Nigeria Business Council, coordinating private sector involvement in economic development. It's a bobo, by the way. So Brigitte Macron and Rat, the Nigeria's Vex lady, they will discuss empowering women, children, and vulnerable populations through Nigeria Vex Ladies Renewed Shege's initiative. And Tinubu and his wife will also attend a dinner hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron. But that is not what he went there to do. Look at me very well. That is not what Tinubu went there to do. I'll tell you what I heard is there to do. But here is the motion picture of the arrival, the usual.
minutes, Excellency. Just 6 minutes. Yeah. I'm with the French protocol. Right with me. Thank you. How are you?
So that was Kolu at the Paris airport. Why is Kolu in France? Normally, he goes to France almost every 2-3 weeks. The longest time he's not been to France has been probably like about for like 2 months. That even when he had to go to the any world summit like G this or G that, stopping over in France has always been like a routine until we sort of raise the lead, like remove the lead over why he's always in France for 2 reasons. Why is Macron specifically inviting Tinubu, that has been almost like a resident of France since he bought a house there in the late 2017? Well, here is the deal. France has no real like interest in Nigeria until they got kicked out from their cash cow countries in the Sahel. Somehow, they've done everything they could to make these guys in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and partly in Chad to change their mind. Remember that a year and a half ago, the journey of how France was to lose their decades-long cash cows, where France, unlike Britain, okay, France considered their old colonies as their own inheritance. So here is the journey. Since the independence, supposedly independence of these countries, France never left these countries to actually make them independent. The resources of these countries were being plundered, pretty much like a stolen by France. And what later came to light after their puppet governments in these countries were booted out of office. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, they might be independent country on paper, but they were never economically independent. Their currencies are being printed from France, the franc. And not just that. These countries were forced to keep their supposed foreign accounts, or no, they have a name for that. Foreign reserve. So foreign reserve is like countries like Nigeria that has its own foreign reserve in America with the World Bank. So the only difference is that Nigeria could trade with all countries, sell their own mineral resources, make money, and deposit the money in America, in New York. But you see, these West African countries, these French-speaking West African countries, by the verdict of their supposed independence, they were never allowed to trade with any other countries except France. Their resources were not allowed to be sold to any other countries except French companies. And these French companies are the ones to determine how much they will pay for these resources. And it's been like that forever. For example, let's say a barrel of crude oil is sold for $70 in the market. The French companies will pay probably $1 for this barrel of crude oil. It is that bad. Don't open your mouth like, yes, it's that bad. The other mineral resources, right, from that country that goes as much as $200, $300 per, kg or so, French companies were paying next to nothing for them. And guess what? The money are not directly paid to these countries. The money is paid to France. Yes, to French designated banks. Now, if these countries, or whenever these countries want to draw money from their own supposed mineral resources savings, they couldn't just go there and withdraw the money and say, okay, you know what? We need 500 million euros, or we need 1 billion euros. No. They will have to borrow the money, their own money. They would have to borrow it from the French bank with interest, which left them in the perpetuity of indebtedness to France. And as you can possibly tell, these countries are among the poorest countries in the world. So starting with Mali 2 years ago, that a coup took place, then followed by Burkina Faso, I think, then Niger, which happened last year. These countries cut off some of these French companies, and they started making a deal with not just Russia, including China. And immediately, having lost their cash cow and they were losing more, it was around the time that Tinubu rigged himself to be your president in Nigeria. Listen to this. So not that these countries didn't challenge this slavery. Some of them did try until they stopped trying, like to renegotiate. Whenever they make attempts to renegotiate these horrible deals where millions of people were subjected to like excruciating poverty, France will stage coup or kill their presidents so that another person will take over who is ready to play ball. The fact that the countries are not getting the reward, the return from their resources, those of their presidents who could play balls, they were given estates in France. Their family members, all of them were kind of like, they have access to unlimited funds and resources in France, while their people back home were left in squalor. But in these countries, this successive coup that took place in these countries for the first time in over 5 decades, that's over 50 years, they carried out this coup without the notice of France, with no French involvement at all, which triggered them that they issued, not only that they issued sanctions, they increased terrorism in these countries by funding some of these Janjaweed terrorists. France became so desperate that when Tinubu, who became a resident in, well, unofficially, he bought a house there. Well, I think probably that gives him citizenship of France as well. He bought a property worth over 15 million euro in France, southern France, as far back as 2017. That was Tinubu. So when Tinubu rigged himself in Nigeria, it was an easy ally to approach. Someone they felt like, with all the compromise on him, it could possibly be the big brother that could be used to usurp the powers of these countries. But it was pretty much late. I'll tell you how that kind of played out. So when this coup took place, majority of these countries like the Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, especially, they just faced Kremlin in Russia. And they got the backing of Russia. So automatically, it became more impossible, almost impossible for France to do what they normally do, stage an internal coup, okay, that will overthrow some of these governments and stuff will return back to the status quo. So when that didn't really work at the onset, they approached the druggie from Nigeria, Tinubu, if he could possibly, starting with Niger Republic, if he could possibly help. So it would just be like, this was not done by France or America. It was done by the big brother Nigeria, okay, to remove this junta from power in Niger and return Bazoum, their own supposed puppet, to power. Now, fast forward to when all of that failed, because some of you who have been following that don't need this repetition per se, right? So when all of that failed, it was now more or less like, wait, How about we approach this compromised president of Nigeria? If maybe we could possibly even get all these things that we have lost, even they may never really get all they've lost from this, from these West African countries. But maybe they could possibly get a bit of, leverage, so to say. But it is also impossible for Tinubu to give them all they want. But they won't stop cutting it by possibly making a deal with Tinubu to concede some parts of Nigeria to them, where some of their own, these French companies that have lost out in these West African countries could possibly recoup in smuggling and stealing Nigerian resources. Now, again, it is almost impossible for Tinubu to give them what they want, because it is not going to really happen where France or the French companies will move to Nigeria and begin to pay peanuts for any of Nigeria resources, except if they are actually going to be smuggling them. For years, we've had the advancement of this Janjaweed terrorist in the Sahel. There is this French base in some of this country in the Sahel, just like the American bases in these areas. But the presence of America and France in this axis has never really stopped or quelled the advancement of this terrorism, which Nigeria has paid so dearly for. Now, part of the negotiation is, even if they have lost out a lot in these regions, right? There is one project, one big, massive project. It is called the KKK Pipeline Project. Now, America and France, they have invested over $25 billion in this project. And what is that all about? It is to pump the crude oil from Niger Delta and mount pipeline from Niger Delta of Nigeria. Okay? And this pipeline is going to pass through the Agadez in Niger and pass through some of this, including Libya. Now, somehow they don't really have much problems with Libya, but with Niger Republic, which they are no longer in any diplomatic relationship with anymore, they still need Nigeria. Nigeria has been promised that they would make a lot of money by, instead of shipping their crude oil to sell it to Europe, their gas to Europe, right? They can just turn the gas or the crude oil on from the Niger Delta, from Nigeria, right? And then the Europe here would have access to these unlimited resources at hugely discounted rates. This is why Tinubu is in France. But the problem here is this. Nigeria is already very good on this deal. And Niger Republic, that is giving them much conditions, like you would have to kind of probably like redirect your pipeline to somewhere else. Or you will allow it on our own terms. So I don't know how much influence France thinks that Tinubu still has, or about Tinubu's illegitimate regime still have in these West African countries who have sworn, and in fact, they have actually become more stronger now. You know what they did? When France and others were, including America, when they were playing the card of intimidation to intimidate these countries, that if they don't do what we ask you to do, this is what will happen and all that. These countries formed their own bloc by first removing themselves from the African Union, remove themselves from the ECOWAS, which simply means whatever it is that the Africans are agreeing with these Western countries, it will no longer be binding on them. A huge setback for all the decade-long planned, like what do you call it,